Hello, everybody. My name is Dylan Rafaty, and I am the proud host of the Let's Work Inclusively podcast. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I'm so thrilled to have a new guest on our show, my good friend Meryl K. Evans, of the founder and CEO of Meryl.net. Before we begin our podcast, I do want to highlight what Let's Work Inclusively podcast is all about. It's the idea to talk about meaningful conversations, inspiring stories, but also most importantly, talking about what is working within our business, nonprofit, and government sectors in North Texas and beyond. And so this year's, it's been a fourth episode of the podcast. And so it's been exciting to be able to produce this for all of you to enjoy and to meet individuals who are behind the scenes doing the great work in our communities. So briefly, I am also the founder, president, and CEO of the North Texas Disability Chamber, and the North Texas Disability Chamber is empowering this podcast of Let's Work Inclusively. So today's topic I'm so excited about is regarding accessible communication in the workplace and why inclusion starts with how we listen and engage with each other. And so I'm thrilled to present my good friend, my not only my friend, my leadership Plano classmate, best class ever, but also she
most inclusive class ever.
There you go, most inclusive class ever. That's smart. This is Meryl K. Evans. She's an accessibility consultant, professional speaker, and one of the most recognized voices on accessible communication right here in our studios. So, Meryl, can you tell us a little bit about you?
I am born and raised in Texas. I grew up in Fort Worth, and I have lived in Plano much longer than that. I was born profoundly deaf, and I don't sign. It was just the time that I grew up in. Professionals encouraged my parents to put me through a lot of speech therapy and learned how to speak. And a lot of people in my life are not fluent in some language. And it's a wonderful language to learn, and it takes time. And I worked for the federal government and several Fortune 500 companies before striking out on my own as the quality control for disability inclusion, where I break barriers to marketing, user experience, and design, and teach organizations how to build systems that don't leave anyone out.
Love that. And just so you guys know, Meryl is also a TEDx speaker. She has been an advocate for accessibility, not only in communications and marketing, but also within our respective communities. She's a digital marketing expert, and she also helps global companies make communication more accessible and of influence to benefit our community of people with disabilities. She's also the LinkedIn top voice for disability advocacy, and I consider not only an accessibility influencer, but someone who has lived experiences that truly understand the importance of accessible communication and interaction between members of the disability community. And so, Meryl, I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. You and I are part of the deaf and hard of hearing community.
Yes.
And we don't necessarily rely on ASL as our form of communication. And for those who don't know, American Sign Language is short for ASL. I want to ask you a little hone-in question. Why is this so important for people with disabilities to understand that there's a spectrum of those that are deaf and hard of hearing? Not everybody relies on one source of communication. So could you elaborate more on why that's so important?
It's important to understand that disabilities are a spectrum, including the deaf and hard of hearing community. I mean, when you've met one deaf person, you've met one deaf person, not all of us. So when you meet the next deaf person, they may not be like me, or they may have some things in common with me. Believe it or not all deaf and hard of hearing people read lips. Not everybody wears a hearing device of any kind. It's all over the place. Even you and I are a little different in our communication as we grew up. I'm heavily dependent on reading lips, and my bionic ear helps me read lips better, but I will never be able to use the phone in the same way you do.
Yeah.
So it's really important to ask, not assume, because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the
Yes.
other. And there'll happen times when they try to provide me with the ASL interpreter, and there's not very many interpreters, so that's a waste of an interpreter. But they need to be where they belong.
So when I think about accessible communication, we have to look at it in the context of beyond compliance. And so can you define what accessible communication means to you?
Accessible communication to me means those options. Always have options for both ways, entering information or providing information and receiving information, because you give people choices in how they receive the information from you. For example, I love video calls, video meetings, because I have the caption, I have the video for reading lips, and I have the chat box as the fallback. So, because sometimes captions don't work, or I'm having trouble with something, or the captions are not doing a good job with someone's voice, or whatever, or someone is not speaking. So, communication options it's the simplest thing you can do. It's always offer options.
So the key word there, as Meryl had noted, is options. Giving individuals with disabilities the power of choices and options readily available to them that they can engage more meaningfully, whether it's in virtual settings or you're tuning in right now watching us here, or simply in a interpersonal connection as well. So now tell me more about how did your personal and professional journey lead into accessibility? I know you've been doing this for well over multiple decades. So tell me, how did that journey shed more light into that?
A lot of people ask me how I got into advocacy. I said I was born into it. I was very fortunate to have parents who were excellent advocates, and I learned from watching them.
Yes.
And as a parent of 3 kids who have disabilities, it helped me be a better advocate for them and myself. And over the years, I've always been involved in some kind of advocacy for accessibility in some way along the way. But it really picked up in 2018.
Yes.
When I started making videos. For the longest time, I wouldn't do videos because I know I have a deaf accent. And I didn't know how people would respond to that. So I made a very short one, captioned it, of course, and it was well received. So I started making more. And in doing so, I found myself on the other side of captions for the first time in my life. I was making them. I was not viewing them.
Yeah.
And I learned so much about captioning best practices that I took for granted all these years.
Well, I will say you bring up a valid point. When I first started my sort of video vlogs before I became a podcaster of a host of a video podcast, I will say that, when you're thinking about social media, imagine, we're constantly scrolling. And as we're scrolling, there's some video content. And typically, I don't like to be, luckily I have a hearing aid where it connects to my Bluetooth of my hearing aid and I can actually hear it. But for some people, they don't have that, AirPods or whatnot. So the idea is having that captions in that video without having to click on the video allows them to still engage and interact with the content because there's captions that's provided. So that is so important. So what are some most common misconceptions that organizations have regarding accessibility?
Of course, they think it's too expensive. They think it's too hard. They think, too time-consuming, and that it will result in something boring, like a boring design. And it's been proven again and again that's not true. In fact, most accommodation costs $400 or less, and a lot of them are free. I was at a meeting last night, a board meeting, a nonprofit board meeting. I brought my laptop, I turned on my caption, and I had them.
Yeah.
So anytime I got stuck, I have them. So there's so many ways to.
So, and if you remember, Meryl, before the pandemic, or actually during the pandemic, Zoom had to incorporate free users so that they can incorporate captions on their content. And that was because of advocates like you and I who've been pushing for the need for, don't make it an extra burden, a cost, just make it as a feature, a new feature that could be enabled. With Microsoft, they now have subtitles and opportunity to engage as you're having access to the PowerPoint presentation. So could you elaborate some additional features that are readily free and readily available for people who already have subscriptions and so forth?
Yeah, the pandemic was a huge turning point for caption because everybody went on video call. A lot of people, not just deaf and hard of hearing people,
Yes.
but a lot of people were struggling on those video calls and pushing for caption. And I have it written down by May of 2000 and June of 2020. Sorry, by May and June of 2020. So the pandemic hit in March.
Yes.
By May and June of 2020, three of the major platforms had caption.
Yes.
But it was a clunky solution.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get the caption to happen.
You got to start somewhere.
Right.
You got to start somewhere. Progress over perfection.
Absolutely. But you had to request the caption for one of the platforms from them through a form and say you were deaf or hard of hearing. But only 80% of the people who caption are not deaf and hard of hearing, according to an Ofcom survey.
So let me ask you this. With our business and government network here in North Texas and beyond, what is the curb cut effect and the benefit to them when it comes to accessibility?
I'm not telling that story. So the curb cut effect is when something's made for a specific disability and it ends up helping many people. And the curb cut started with the ramp. At the corner, people who use wheelchairs could not cross the street safely because there was the step. No one wants to go down a step in a wheelchair.
Nobody does.
So they made the ramp to make it safer. But probably more people who don't use wheelchairs use the ramp than do, because a lot of us use it when we go shopping with our carts, or pushing a stroller, or biking, or traveling. We pull those luggage. We don't lift those luggage. We pull them on the ramp.
Yes.
So captions are a great example of the curb cut effect in a digital world, because so many people use them. They tell me every single day, I use it, I'm not deaf or hard of hearing.
Yeah. I think, again, really is understanding that if you built accessibility from the beginning of the process, you actually are not only benefiting people with disabilities like you and I, Meryl, but also to other peers who don't necessarily identify in the disability community, but benefit as a extra support system for them to engage and interact with your products and or solutions. And so, AI is in a way a curb cut effect in a way, because ChatGPT, you're getting access to information that is curated for you. It may not be accurate, but it is a tool, is a type of solution that could help enhance your current operations or whatnot. So now let's move in toward tools and strategies around inclusive communication in the workplace. So what are the simplest changes that teams today can make to make it meeting spaces and or digital spaces more inclusive?
Well, the first thing I recommend to teams is share your preferred ways of collaborating and communicating. A lot of times, people are on teams that they work with on a regular daily basis, and when they communicate to each other, I prefer this, not this. So people can be more respectful and make an effort to do so. I mean, it won't be 100%. Like that progress over perfection.
Yes.
There will be compromises, because I remember I was talking to a friend who has low vision. She identifies as vision impaired. That's her term.
Yes.
And one day she was having trouble with the camera and seeing, and we were discussing how do we communicate, because she could not use text and she could not be on camera, but I couldn't hear her. So we just worked it out. We found ways around that. So the key is option. Always have options and multiple ways of doing things. And remember that accessibility is not a siloed.
Yes.
So, for example, you might order something online, but you take it back in person.
Yes.
So you have to consider 360-degree accessibility, not just the digital aspect, but the non-digital aspect. And the perfect example of me dealing with it multiple times. So I would interact with customer support using this online chat, because no phone calls and emails are not live. A chat is live.
Yes.
And a lot of times I can't solve my problem, because I always do my research before I contact customer service, because it's faster for me to solve my own problem.
Yes.
Well, sometimes they can't, and they have to escalate to the next group.
Yes.
Yes. And a lot of times they'll say, what's your phone number? Because this group only does phone calls.
Mm.
And I push back every single time. And one time I said, in the future, can you ask for an email or a phone number, not just our phone number? And guess what? The next time I went back, they offered both options.
Okay.
And in another case, they actually asked me if anybody can speak for me on my behalf.
Yes.
So, in other words, they wanted me to find somebody to solve my problem for me, to get on the phone with them. They did not want to work around that.
So when you're basically saying is that we need to ensure that if we're going to provide any type of support system around accessibility, we need to make sure that we include the diverse ranges of individuals with disabilities, because each individual has a different preference, a different choice, a different option that best suits for them. I want to kind of switch it over into the government sector. You and I have been staunch advocates for public-facing televisions in our local governments, in our local communities, to adopt captions as either a resolution or an ordinance. A resolution is a practice, whereas ordinance is the law for the local government communities. So, Meryl, could you highlight some of the accomplishments that we were able to do together in regards to captions, but it really was led by you?
So we remember it was during when we were in Leadership Plano. Yeah. We were at dinner after one of the events in December. I remember that, because it was a cool evening and they had heaters. And I was exhausted. I was exhausted after a Leadership Plano session.
Yes.
And so I couldn't pay attention to the conversation because my brain was just overloaded.
Yes.
Yes. So I turned my focus to the TV as a way to try to calm down, but they didn't have the caption turned on. And I had just read about Boston passing an ordinance that required caption on all public-facing TV.
Yes.
So I thought, when I went home, I emailed the city manager and the mayor. Yes. And made that suggestion. I pointed to Boston. I pointed to Seattle.
Yes.
And shared those articles about them. And I forgot about it. Then a few months later, Mark emailed me and said they're going to put this on the agenda of the city council. As soon as that happened, I contacted you, and we thought we're going to go up there and then speak in person.
Yes.
What they did was they didn't make it an ordinance because it's not realistic to be able to. I don't really want our police force.
Yes.
Policing captions.
Yes.
And that's totally understandable.
Yes.
But what they did was a great compromise. They require caption on public-facing TV of city property.
Yes.
So, like the rec center.
Yes.
When I went to work out, it was they had captions back when I walked out before all this happened. So that was, yeah.
So it's really, for those who don't understand, is that the reason for this is because city governments are there to serve the public.
Yes.
And to make communications accessible to the public is so important. And so Plano became the seventh city in America to do it, and the first city in Texas to adopt a sort of a resolution around public facing television, and encouraging the business community in Plano
Yes.
to also follow suit in that practice. The city of Allen, which is next door neighbors to Plano, became the second Texas city to do it, and then the eighth city in America to also adopt it, because they saw that as also a beneficial to the cities. And so recently met with the executive director of the Texas Municipal League, which is in charge of all the different local municipal governments in Texas. And so we're sharing that sort of resolution so that other cities in Texas could establish that. So it is because of an idea that Meryl had. She saw it based on an experience. She presented it via email to the city manager. And because of her prior relationship with the city manager and through Leadership Plano, she's established that trust, respect relationship. And because of that, they saw it as a cost-effective benefit, because reality is most TVs today are state-of-the-art, and just a matter of a click of a button, you can have AI caption. Now, not guaranteed, but real-time and accurate, but it's a start. And I want to highlight, before we get into break, could you highlight what progress over perfection means to you, Meryl?
Well, when people are getting started with accessibility or trying to make progress with accessibility, they get overwhelmed, because it's everybody's job, really. It's not the website, it's everyone. So, for example, human resources need to ensure the interviewing and hiring and onboarding processes are accessible. And procurement needs to make sure things are accessible. So it's very overwhelming. I reinforce progress over perfection because it helps people feel less overwhelmed and focus on what can we do to make progress today, no matter how small it is.
Well, I appreciate that. And I tell this to everybody. I told this to Sin Marshall. I told this to our emerging leaders. I told this to everybody. Progress over perfection is a mindset. It is the idea that as long as we're investing into something little by little each day, is progress, because we're tapping into something that we're wanting to eventually build and make it better. So we're going to commercial break, Meryl. So thank you again for your lively conversation, your enthusiasm, your passion. It truly shows. So one of our partners, the city of Richardson, is a great partner of ours. Has been a founding partner from the beginning. That we have a video for them that they are going to play as I read this script. In Richardson, community means everyone belongs. From neighborhood gatherings to citywide celebrations, we're building a place where people of all backgrounds feel welcome. Our commitment to accessibility ensures every resident and visitor can participate fully, whether it's enjoying the Wildflower Arts and Music Festival, exploring their parks, or engaging in their city programs. Richardson is more than just a city, it's a community of inclusion, engagement, and opportunity. Richardson is a place where everyone belongs. And as a Richardson native myself, I will tell you, they truly mean it. And as somebody who went in the early 90s growing up in Richardson, I remember my park days, among other things. And so truly have a great privilege and honor to present this commercial. Thank you, City of Richardson, for your support of the North Texas Disability Chamber.
Sure.
So we are now back, and I am so excited to talk about what's next for accessibility and inclusive culture. Meryl, could you define what the role of technology is involving in making work more inclusive?
technology is shifting from being a productive tool to being a bridge, one that connects people across differences and removes barriers that used to be invisible. So accessibility like AI caption, real-time translation, voice to text are becoming the default in platforms, and technology also allows for personalization at scale. For example, I always say the best caption are the user preference.
Yes.
And the way to ensure that happens is to provide options. So you have color options, you have font options, you have whether you want the words highlighted option. Everybody has a different preference. When you don't have those options, you follow the best practices. But someone will always not be happy with best practices because what makes something accessible for one person can be inaccessible for the other person.
So what advice would you give leaders that want to champion accessibility and disability inclusion, not only in their communities, but also in their organizations?
Start with culture, not compliance. Listen to employees with disabilities, that's most important. And then audit everyday workflows for friction, for barriers, and make leadership, make accessibility part of leadership metrics. They love numbers, and it needs to be part of that. And start with the quick win. There's always some easy starting point that you can do, like offering options for communicating. That's a quick win. Maybe I was up for an interview, and they asked me for my phone number and to schedule a date. I could not move past that phase until I gave them my phone number and a date. It was after I did that I received an email about accessibility and accommodation. That needs to be moved earlier in the process. So that's a quick win that can happen very quickly. And accountability and normalizing accessibility is part of business.
And as well as normalizing disability too.
Yeah.
I mean, and normalizing our communication with each other. I mean, we're having a nice, friendly environment conversation, normalizing that as a part of a greater community. So, Meryl, let me ask you this from a personal standpoint. You know, you've been doing this for quite a while now. You've been an advocate, you've been a supporter, you've been staunch, and you've been working hand by hand with me to make accessibility better for everybody in our communities. To sort of close this kind of conversation, how can we innovate the idea of disability inclusion, not only in accessible communities or accessible communications or marketing, or just in general in our community? How can we re-innovate the idea of disability inclusion in your eyes?
I think the key thing is to always involve people with disabilities. Hire us, work with us. You want to have both internal and external involvement, because sometimes people inside the company know their stuff too well that they overlook stuff.
Yes.
Because I have worked with a company that has deaf people like me there, and I found a barrier that they had missed because they knew their product so well they didn't realize there was a problem. So always involve people with disabilities and design, co-design with us, not for us. What is the key word? I love this story I read this year about a woman who has an electric wheelchair, and it would take her 45 minutes to plug it in with a knife, and it had to be done a certain way, because if she didn't do it the right way, she would have no wheelchair the next day, because it would not work. Well, she worked with high school students and co-designed with them. In 6 days, they found a way for her to do it in 20 seconds.
See, that is a success story that talks about the purpose of including us in the process of co-designing in the process that could enhance and make things better. So Thank you for highlighting that, Meryl. So let me ask you this, Meryl. I appreciate the wealth of knowledge, and we're toward the end of our podcast right now. So I want to ask you, what is your next project that you're working on? What are the next things coming up that people would like to know what you're doing coming up ahead?
Well, I've been working with clients, so it's not something that people can access, But with one of my clients, I love the work I'm doing. I'm creating training,
Okay.
bite-sized training. So if you run into a design barrier, like the image does not have a description, and so they would take the short training and learn it right away. So we try to make it relatable and not dry. So much accessibility training very dry.
Yes.
There were several I tried to take, but I quit because it was just so dry. I couldn't focus. It just wasn't sticking with me.
So you're doing training, bite-sized training for people that would also. Where can people contact you? Where can they find you and learn from you?
Easier to go to Meryl.net, which is my website, MERYL.net. And by the way, I'm not related to Meryl Streep. I would do that joke. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn very easily. Just search for my name, and I'm right there.
Well, I appreciate you, Meryl. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your joy, your passion. You truly know the importance of accessible communications. I want to let everybody know that Meryl is on LinkedIn, just like me. Follow her. She has wealth of content that she shares and really brings an international network of leaders within the digital accessibility landscape, the marketing, the communication departments, all of them coming together and learning about best practices and new innovative ways to support people with disabilities through accessible communication. In addition, remember, inclusion isn't a checkbox. We need to think of inclusion as a progress over perfection mindset. It's a cultural mindset. And don't forget to always to work inclusively with your peers with disabilities, because we truly have a lot of knowledge and experience and ideas that could enhance and contribute either in your communities or in our organizations. And so I will be remiss to share that thank you to the City of Richardson for sponsoring our episode today, but also they will be our featured guest next episode, where we'll feature City Manager Don Magner and Mayor Amir Omar of the City of Richardson. So stay tuned for that next episode. After all, thank you again, Meryl. Here's a handshake to you. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, thank you and see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.